For over a century, Australia's screen industry has been telling stories to and for everyday citizens regarding who we are as a country and as individuals, or at least who we think we are. From the stoic heartbreaker to the rugged bushman and the cheeky larrikin, our national identity on screen has been shaped by a handful of familiar and classic faces, almost all of them male. Yet in the shadows of these characters and male history are the women whose creative visions rarely reach the global spotlight. In the 1920s, the McDonough sisters ran their own production company, making what critics hailed as some of the finest Australian films of their era. Despite being filmmaking pioneers before Australia and the world even knew what film meant, their careers were stalled, not by a lack of talent, but by funding barriers, distribution challenges, and an industry that saw women as outsiders in their own craft. Nearly a century later, the imbalance remains stark. Even with national support programs like Screen Australia's Gender Matters, female-led stories and female practitioners still struggle for equal footing in funding, production, and distribution. Addressing this gap isn't just a matter of representation, it's about how our national film industry sees itself, how it's funded, and how it connects with audiences at home and abroad. That's why we'll be addressing this issue in three interconnected angles. Firstly, we'll explore the ethical responsibilities tied to government funding and the trust placed in national screen bodies. Then, we'll examine the cultural and social impact of bringing more diverse voices into our cinematic landscape. Finally, we'll consider the market demand and what audiences today are telling us they want to see. Because in the end, the question isn't whether women are capable of telling Australia their stories, it's whether we as a nation will finally give them the space, the trust, and the resources to do so.
The Australian film industry has a glaring gender imbalance, with almost all of the top grossing films being made by men. In fact, most of the highest grossing Australian films feature male directors, with Baz Luhrmann being a particularly prominent figure. According to Screen Australia's 2025 report, women are still vastly outnumbered in the industry. Just 32% of screenwriters and 47% of producers are women. While these numbers are telling, the report did not go into as much depth on other key roles like directors or cinematographers, though it is safe to assume they are also male-dominated. Despite these statistics, there have been some wins. Films like The Dressmaker, directed and written by Jocelyn Moorhouse, show that women can tell powerful stories that resonate with audiences, but female-driven films remain a rarity in the Australian film landscape. To help close this gender gap, initiatives like Women in Film and Television have made great strides. WIFT is a non-profit organisation that promotes more female representation in the industry, offering events and fundraisers to support women looking to break into film. One such event is the WIFT's Writers' Retreat in Busselton, Western Australia, which aims to connect women filmmakers across the country and build a more inclusive industry. However, there's another demographic that still lacks recognition: female First Nations directors. Their stories are largely underrepresented, and even when they are told, they often fly under the radar. Some festivals like the St Kilda Film Festival have made space for female First Nations filmmakers, but this remains a small part of the larger Australian film scene. Thankfully, initiatives like She Directs, launched by Black Apple Productions and Screen Australia, are working to change this. Through workshops and collaborations with First Nation filmmakers, She Directs seeks to amplify the voices of female First Nations directors and ensure their stories gain the visibility they deserve. While there's a long road ahead, these efforts are essential in reshaping the Australian film industry to be more inclusive and reflective of all voices.
Representation in media matters. Young girls often look to the screen for answers, but when there is a lack of diversity in the media, it disheartens young girls, and from the very beginning they are told what their place in society is. The lack of representation of women and other marginalised groups in film has been a long-standing issue, with women often relegated to stereotypical or marginal roles. Commonly in Australian films, women are misogynistically portrayed to be purposefully child-free, and this is often in a negative light. I watched the film The Long Weekend, directed by Colin Eggleston, not long ago, and the leading woman, Marsha, is a purposefully child-free woman, and throughout the film she refuses to sleep with her husband. From the beginning of the film, she is being tormented by a scream that sounds like a screaming child that Peter, her husband, cannot hear. When it is revealed that she doesn't want to sleep with him due to the fact she had an abortion not long prior from an affair with another man, She is shamed by her husband and further tormented by the scream in her environment for her mistake. I think it's extremely harmful that she is painted in this light, and later on, after all of the fighting, Peter accidentally murders her in the night. Belinda Lee's research around this subject matter has her saying, on screen, when child-free women are portrayed negatively, it marginalizes, reduces, and invalidates a woman's choice to be child-free, which may not even be voluntary. And it's a feedback loop where harmful depiction in film and TV strengthens these attitudes in real life, which can in turn influence aggressive behaviors towards women. This is just one of the many stereotypical female roles in a film that is harmful to society, but there are a vast majority of others that need to be put to rest too.
While the Australian screen industry has seen commercial success for independent films made and directed by women, such as The Dressmaker, and significant creative and cultural impact works from Sherpa, Gabby Baby, and Looking for Grace, these situations are scarce in the industry. Many women struggle to transition from independent short films to sustainable and influential positions in the field. One of the largest issues is due to the audience perception and the marketing of female-made films. There's a noticeable stigma affecting projects overtly advertising as being made by women, exemplified by criticism leveled at feminist films like the Mulan remake, Charlie's Angels, and Ocean's 8 for perceived weaknesses in writing, failure to effectively explore feminist themes, or simply not resonating with the audience. This negative reception is heightened by the director's attitude against potential audiences. As an example is the Marvel's director Nia DaCosta attacking the Marvel fans who dislike the film by calling them virulent and violent and racist and sexist and homophobic, while calling herself the side of the light. This leads to the audience experiencing a negative psychological reaction as a result, believing that the filmmakers are forcing them to adopt a particular viewpoint, potentially making audience actively avoid films that are made by women. This will directly impact funding for female-made films and reduce the diversity within the industry, especially for a small market like Australia. To remedy the audience's stigma against these films, we should back more of the strongly written female-led films while avoiding advertising that emphasizes the gender, allowing the quality of their filmmaking to speak for itself. This will help more women ease into working prominent roles while gradually shifting the audience's perception of their films. Ultimately, women deserve equal opportunities so that stories can stand alongside any other, because in the end, great films aren't male or female. They're just great.